Hi, and welcome back to the competition studio. I'm your host, Jared Dunn, and I'm here with two competitors after the first stage has concluded. So I'd like to introduce them. This is Salome from Georgia and Mia from Croatia. And they have been performing in the first stage, and I'd love to hear their thoughts on what the first stage was like. So let's hop to it, our discussion. Welcome to the studio. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be here.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So what was your experience on stage in the first round? You were first to play.
Yeah, that was very nerve-wracking. I mean, just picking out that number, I was like, okay, my lucky day, apparently. And I mean, it's like, wow, this big competition, and I'm the one to start it off, you know? I'm setting some kind of a standard. And
We all applauded. Like when she picked
Yeah, we
it
did
up.
as soon as it came out, right? Did you expect it?
No, not at all. I was
Who
like,
could?
oh, I'm going to be last or something. I'm going to have like 3 more days to just calmly prepare my first round. But no, it was
Nope.
like, oh, that's it. You go on tomorrow first, 10 in the morning, be there. But it was wonderful, actually. I felt very good. I felt quite relaxed on stage. And the one thing that was always kind of I was insecure about was just the piano and how it's going to sound exactly, because you do have 15 minutes, but you have to try 4 pianos.
Four pianos, yeah.
And I was also trying to try out many different pieces from different stages. So I didn't really focus on the first stage. I was like, yeah, that's Beethoven, that's going to be fine. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right. And so there I came then the first time I had to play it. I was like, oh, okay, this is sounding a little bit different than I imagined. So
how do you adapt on stage when something goes differently than you think? What do you do?
I think you just have to kind of relax, breathe, and listen to yourself. And just, okay, maybe this part of the piano is a little bit quieter. I need to add a little bit more strength here.
Yeah, and especially when the audience comes in, the sound changes. So
Yeah.
it's not like if you're trying out the empty hall, it's different. I was actually feeling the same way. Like I didn't know what to expect from the piano, even though I picked it out. Like you never, you don't remember, because I tried 4 pianos as well.
Right.
But I tried to, like, every time I go on stage, regardless of competition or concert, it's like you put the music first. It's not about you and how you feel. Like all of this, like nerves, of course they happen, but I try to be like, but this is the music I'm presenting and I have to do it justice as much as I can.
Did you also play pieces when the piano was being selected? Did you also play pieces from each round to try?
I actually didn't.
Just your first stage?
Yes. Because I feel like I had to pick a piano for that stage. Beethoven is very different from other rounds that I'm playing. I also play Beethoven, and Scriabin has a different sound, so I feel like I had to choose the right one for that particular stage.
Yeah. And I think the $1 million question on most people's minds is, what goes through your head just before your name is called and you know it's time to go on stage?
That's a good question. I think it's just like, there's an adrenaline kick, and there's also kind of like, oh, this is a challenge. Let's see how for me, it's like, oh, it's a challenge. And I feel like there's a different persona that comes in. It's like my stage persona that I feel like is a little bit different from my actual personality.
And you too?
I do a lot of like conversations with myself.
Oh, yeah.
So I have this like one voice that is a lot of self-doubt and like, oh my God, I'm going to be horrible. This is going to be the worst performance of my life. And then a second voice is like, Mia, you got this. This is in your head. It's fine. Whatever happens, you know the pieces so well. You can just get out of it, and even mistakes don't really matter. The biggest thing that matters is like your interpretations and the ideas that you're presenting. So.
And if you like end up not enjoying your performance, even if it was note perfect, it's always such a pity. So I would rather enjoy the performance than be note perfect.
So even
and actually let the audience enjoy, of course, not just me.
Yeah, and then when you said you have something go on and you didn't expect it to happen, you just calm down and listen to yourself and keep going and try to adapt maybe to the moment?
Yeah, because I mean, you can keep on panicking and you can keep on trying to swim in this and making maybe even more mistakes, but you can always kind of try to take a step back and just see, okay, maybe this wasn't the most ideal sound that I was trying to produce, but how can I make it work? How can I make it like this one whole piece into one big unity, and how to kind of get out of it smoothly?
And that's kind of the attitude we need as performers, right? Because things happen unexpectedly, not only in competitions, but in regular concerts too.
Absolutely,
We're not
especially when
robots.
you're collaborating with other people. You never know what the other person's going to do. You have to be adaptable to any piano, sadly.
Anything.
And do you feel like, generally speaking, you're competing probably not only here, but in other competitions too. Do you feel that competitions really test this or contribute something valuable to learning this skill of adaptation? And
Absolutely. I feel like also very important part of competitions is the preparation. I feel like you really push yourself to the best while preparing for a competition, and I feel like that period really helps me grow. And once you get to the competition, you already succeeded so much because you worked so hard to try your best. So I feel like they're really valuable no matter what you do and how it goes afterwards.
And what about you?
I think it's very important to do competitions because it's so much different than having concerts. Because I feel like a lot of people, when they have concerts, they're like, okay, whatever happens, we were gonna get out of it, it's gonna be fine. The people are gonna forget, they're gonna go to a different concert the next day, maybe.
Right.
Whereas when you're preparing for a competition, I think naturally you're gonna feel like you're gonna be judged based on, I don't know, the scores, your knowledge of the pieces and the composers and how they wrote this and how you adapt to the piano, the instrument that you're given in the hall. And so I think you're much more studious and meticulous when practicing and working. So yeah, I think it's like the ultimate test of just adaptation.
Yeah. And do you enjoy being on stage?
I love it. I live for
Me
it.
too,
I
yeah.
love it.
What is it
I
you love?
live for it.
Really, you live for it.
Yes.
That's a great.
That's my goal. Like I would love to be performing anytime, and you know that's because I feel like for me it's such a different. Even if you play in the same hall, 2 days in a row, you've the same preparation and everything. It's such a different feeling every time, and you really feel the audience. For me, like it's all about my connection with the audience, and you can really feel what they feel when you're playing.
Yeah, you can.
And I love that connection and sharing my ideas, and I try to have like a concept every time I play, try to have maybe like some kind of an imagination behind and a story behind a piece. So I feel like if I've succeeded and to keep their attention, and they don't particularly know what I'm feeling and what I'm thinking, but they know that there's something behind a piece if you've succeeded. That's that part. So
Everyone makes up their own stories,
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
That's the whole beauty of it.
yes.
When you are able to express these emotions, they might not be able to define it, but everyone will think of different times maybe of their lives and different things. So, yeah, in a way.
So when you walked off stage, when you finished your first stage recitals, how did you feel?
I was very
you remember?
happy, to be honest.
You were happy.
Yeah, I was very happy because I took it as such a challenge because, well, as I said, I didn't really try these pieces on this piano beforehand. And so for me, it was like, oh my God, like, why didn't I do that? And I was very nervous about it. But then, you know, I was just so happy that I managed to, I think these are such difficult pieces that I chose for the first time, like playing it on a certain piano and presenting yourself for the first time, that I was just very, very happy to, I think that I got my ideas, interpretations across.
I would say
you,
the
Salome?
same. As Mia mentioned, there's a lot of judgment when you're playing in a competition. And I was happy that I was able to, even though I was a little bit nervous in the beginning, I was able to overcome that and actually feel like it was a concert instead of a competition. And I think that's the biggest success, if you overcome your fears and you're like, this is really enjoyable because it's all about the music, it's not about you.
And I felt while listening to you that was particularly obvious in your Scriabin.
Oh,
You seem to
thank
be
you.
really, was that true? You seem to be really in this. Not that you weren't in the Beethoven, but I felt something very special in your Scriabin.
I feel like it's a very character piece, so you have to be in it when you're playing it. And yes, absolutely. Even the Beethoven, I feel like there's a lot of fun, which, you know, it's compared to other Beethovens, it's like one of the most, like, full of jokes, and it's such a fun piece. And that compared with such an ironic and kind of devilish Scriabin was fun to play.
And I noticed in your Berg, there was a moment, and I know the score, so I know that there's fortissimo on the score, that you were standing up over the piano.
Yes,
Is that something that you practice?
I mean, I thought about it. I didn't necessarily practice it, but I said, okay, I think you can only produce a certain sound from the piano. I mean, when you get to, like, I don't know, 3 Fs, you can't really show it with loudness. The difference between 3 and 4 Fs, or maybe 4 or 5, or 5 or 6 or 7, how I had in Ligeti in one etude. And so this is where I think as an artist you also have to start to think about, like, how do I use my body to really show the differences and show this kind of gradual graduation of the
sound?
dynamics.
Ah, and so was that something that you had actually thought through, or was it in the moment on stage?
I thought through it a little bit, yeah.
But was that the first time you did it?
No, I did it. Week beforehand, I played it through, and so I did the same thing. I was like, yeah, this was a good idea.
Because it made an effect on the sound. I mean, I know when that moment's coming when I play it. I've never stood up in order to play it though, but I sometimes practice standing over the piano just to see how it affects different sound. Right? Have you ever tried this?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It helps so
Especially
much.
when I was younger, like that's how I learned to make a big sound. Because when you're younger, you're weaker and all that.
Right.
But actually, physicality helps a lot. Sometimes looking up when the music is growing and going up, like that helps. And you don't necessarily have to do it every time you play, but that sensation of looking up or like looking somewhere or changing your body movement actually helps. Yeah.
So this was great. I'm glad I got to ask you about that because that moment was exciting to watch because you seemed so absorbed in the Berg, and that's a piece that it appeals to audiences, but it's a little difficult to penetrate at the first hearing. It's hard to receive it. So
yeah, but I think I really fell in love with that piece. I think the first time I was suggested this piece was by my former teacher, and she said, I only give this piece to my smartest students, and I know you're going to learn to appreciate it. Because at first hearing, it's not something that you really want to dive into. But once you start studying it and really see how absolutely brilliantly it's written and how he really thought about every single details and the amount of motives inside that he just plays around with, it's absolutely phenomenal.
yeah, and I think the more you listen to that, the more you get drawn into what he's doing with it. I mean, it
sure.
becomes almost hypnotic.
Yes.
And it's the same, I'd like to return to your Scriabin because that was such a choice. I don't think I've seen it on a competition before. Was there a reason behind choosing that?
Well, I love that piece. I actually initially looked it out because I paired it with Ninth Sonata. I was playing it together with the Ninth Sonata. It's actually a great pairing.
Scriabin Ninth Sonata, I assume.
Scriabin Ninth Sonata, not the Beethoven. And then I fell in love with the piece, and I thought it's like really rarely played, and it's one of the most Lisztian kind of very interesting Scriabin piece, and I loved it, and I thought it would be a great choice for this competition.
And when you were talking before, you mentioned that there's a feeling for you of connecting to the audience and being able to feel what they feel. Did that happen for you in the Scriabin?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Okay, that's great. So when you left the stage, you must have been excited that you reached
I was very
that.
excited, yes. I was excited to feel like it was a performance, it was a concert,
Right.
and it wasn't being judged
Yeah.
in a negative way, of course. People are going to have opinions, but it was also it's a beautiful hall, it's very intimate, and I love playing in new venues.
It was wonderful, to be honest. Yes, I was genuinely, I'm kind of scared of such closed off spaces, when you don't have any windows, no sunlight, no nothing, and you just have this big light that's going to come on you. And I'm always so scared of it that it's going to feel too artificial. But it really actually felt very natural. It felt nice. Everything was very intimate, as you said.
The only thing was not to look left because there's a giant picture of yourself.
Yeah, oh my god, I was so scared of that.
That's a little distracting.
You've just taken my last question, actually. What was it like playing next to a giant picture of yourself when we rely on being able to look left maybe for the conductor, and we're so used to it in concertos,
so
right?
used to
So
it.
you're looking to your left every time something might be happening, especially in maybe Beethoven, which is so orchestral, and you see, there's my headshot. What was your reaction to this?
I didn't realize it was going to be there. I thought it was like first when I arrived at the stage, like my picture so people can see me, but it was really, really odd. So I tried to look right as much as I could.
I think the thing with me is like, I went on stage and somehow I didn't even notice it. Because,
Really?
I was like, oh yeah, I'm not looking there. I shouldn't care about that. I was just like worried, okay, where's the piano? How do I get there? So I was just like focused on this side. I'm just gonna go through there, and I'm just gonna go there, and then I sit down. It's like, oh, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
And you see yourself standing over a piano like this. Right,
that's
with
a
this
giant
picture.
woman, okay.
And when you were performing, was it pulling your focus, or were you totally
Actually,
in your
no.
piece? Yeah.
No, I managed to just kind of focus on the piano in the moment. I have actually a tendency when I'm playing solo, I like to look kind of towards the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And I really enjoy that because I also can kind of feel this energy. I enjoy actually watching people.
Yes.
It's a little bit strange, but not that I'm actually staring into someone's soul while I'm playing, but I just like to see kind of how they're sitting, if they're listening, if they're attentive to it. So
I think it's actually something, because we play in so many different size halls, it's unavoidable. If you play something like a chamber hall or even a smaller hall or a house concert even, you're going to see your audience all around you, or salon style, right? So that's actually quite... I've performed a lot and noticed the reactions of people, whether they're on their phone texting someone or looking at the program or sometimes listening or maybe sleeping. Any final thoughts on the first stage?
Well, yeah, it's a privilege to be here, really. It's my first time being in Poland, and such a wonderful group of people, and it's really nice to meet you. And meet you, of course, and thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's been truly a pleasure. I've enjoyed these few days in Bydgoszcz. It's been so nice.
Oh, bravo.
Great.
It's not easy city to pronounce.
Thank you.
Bydgoszcz.
The people are wonderful. I'm just very happy with how I played, and I'm glad I made some new contacts.
That's great.
Yeah.
So congratulations on your first round recital. Wish you all the best. We now have a couple of fragments to share with the viewers of your Berg and your Scriabin.
Wow.
So we're going to go to those now. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having
Thank
us.
you for having us.
Great. Okay, so now let's listen to their performances in the first stage, a Berg Sonata and the end of the Scriabin poem Satanique. welcome back to the studio. I have another competitor here with us, Pedro López Salas from Spain. Nice to meet you, and nice to have you in the studio.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So I wonder if we could talk a little bit about your first stage recital and how it felt. So, how was it?
Well, it felt good. It felt good. I was quite comfortable with the piano. I was happy. I think I made a really good choice.
Yeah.
Chose this Faccioli. It was really nice piano, and I felt quite comfortable with with the program, with the piano, and it felt good. Of course, before it's always a bit of you're a bit nervous.
Yeah.
Because well, it's a big competition and it's just your first stage, right? So it's just the first time you go on stage and you play for the juries. So, but yeah, generally I would say I felt really comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. And tell us, why did you pick the program that you picked?
Well, I think it's quite contrasting, and I think it shows really different aspects of your musicianship, to say it like that, right? So yeah, I thought it would be really interesting to start with some Haydn, like classical,
Yeah.
then with the depth of Scriabin, and to end with this, well, hard to describe, Ginastera.
Yeah. This was quite a performance. It was energetic. It was very personal. You had such rich colors. How do you approach this sonata?
Yeah, so it's quite funny because of course it has all the Argentinian rhythms and all the Argentinian folklore, but it also has this kind of serial. Actually, the second movement is serial, almost serial music. So you really need to do this combination between really contemporary music and folklorical Argentinian music. That's what it makes it so rich and special and different.
With the last competitors, we were talking about how they were feeling just before they went on stage. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit, just before they called your name to go on stage, what goes through your head? What are you thinking?
Just before getting in, well, to be honest, I don't know.
Yeah. Because it's such a big moment, it's probably hard
Yeah,
to
it's. I
describe.
mean, it's of course a really. I was just, to be honest, myself. I don't know, other people do different for sure. Myself, I just walk around.
You walk around.
I just walk around, and I don't think about. I'm just looking forward to go and play. I feel much more calm once I'm there and I am playing and I start playing. I feel everything. I feel more calm there.
Like in a regular concert situation, we always feel a little stress or something on stage, but once we're sitting at the piano...
Once you are there,
it's fine,
then you are
right?
there, yeah.
Do you feel when you're on stage like you're performing in a way like I am a performer and this is a role that I'm playing, or do you feel very natural, like it's just who I am and I love to share music?
Yeah, I would say the second one. I would say the second one. Even though it's a competition and it's, of course, it's really difficult to play and don't feel like you've been judged because you've been judged.
You are being, and yeah, exactly.
Because you are being judged, yeah. But I try to forget about that. I just try to go on stage, and when I sit in the piano, I just try to play, literally, and to enjoy. And
yeah.
Normally, there are really good opportunities to enjoy a good piano and plays and everything. So
yeah. And when you finished your program, I remember you got up very quickly because the end of the Ginastera is so energetic and so huge. How did you feel about your performance?
Yeah, I felt. I think I felt good. I am quite perfectionistic, so I am always thinking, oh, that could have been better. But as an overall, I'd say I was happy with it.
A lot of people are always, when they're younger and they're preparing for competitions, they want to know things like, how do I feel less nervous on stage? And how do I feel like everything is going to be natural, even when I'm being judged? So how do you cope with the nerves of this and the pressure of the situation?
Well, I think it's just the matter of getting through it a lot of times, to be honest. Because this also teaches you how to approach for next times. Like, it gives you a solid base on how you need to prepare, how you need to practice, of course, there's a lot of tools you can use to reduce this this stress, and of course they are really helpful as well. I don't know, a lot of tools, but I think the most important one really is going through it until it feels natural, and you know how is it going to feel. I mean, you never know exactly how it's going to feel,
But you get to a point where you've had so many experiences like that you understand yourself.
Yeah, you don't need to have a lot of experience of that, but you need to at least understand how does it feel for you and how do you need to prepare in order to feel good on stage.
Exactly.
That's the most important, because when you feel you are well prepared, you can just go on a stage and say, well, whatever is whatever. I just go play.
So it's just as important then to practice a lot and prepare technical things, musical things, and have lessons and be ready with the program.
Sure.
It's just as important to prepare mentally, to be on this situation.
Yeah, I think so. But I think also a lot of the mental preparation comes with this physical preparation, because when you feel the physical aspect is solved, then you can work more on the mental aspect and see how is it going to feel and kind of prepare to it emotionally. And so I think of course it's a mixture of all that. At the end it's just the same thing. I would say.
I was also curious because I love the Scriabin preludes that you played, and it's not so common to hear them, right? When you play Scriabin, are you more feeling or seeing colors? Because of course Scriabin was synesthetic, right? And he was hearing the sound and also seeing colors. Do you also see colors when you play Scriabin?
I could say I feel something definitely colorful in his music. I wouldn't say I specifically see colors, like I say this is blue but I see really different, I don't know how to say, emotions, pictures. Scriabin is really unique, it's really particular. The way he writes in this kind of romanticism style, but with such a mystic touch and everything. So yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I don't know how to describe it.
Because it's funny with Scriabin, if it comes out too planned, it can be a little off-putting. But if it comes out spontaneous and fresh and mystical, which makes us on stage feel like we're a little bit improvising the timing and we have to listen so carefully.
I think you have just made one of the strongest points of Scriabin. Yeah. It's exactly like this. You can't. It's one of those composers that, well, if you can do with one, but for sure you can't with Scriabin plan everything before you go and play. It really needs to be spontaneous. It really needs to create an atmosphere that people is just listening and can't like breathe. So this is really particular composer. When you got that,
and it's a good choice that you put it where you put it in the program then, because you have these a few minutes of preludes to just sort of be in color and space and time very freely almost.
Yeah, sure.
So do you have any final thoughts about the first stage and your performance in it?
Well, no. No, as you said, I think it was good to put this Scriabin in the middle, and generally I felt quite good with the piano. Actually, it kind of allowed to give this range of colors to the program I played. So yeah, that's it.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations on your first stage. I wish you all the best. The results are coming out in a couple of hours, so I'm sure you're very excited to hear.
Yeah, of course.
So thank you very much for joining us in the studio. Now I'd love to play for our viewers the very end of your Ginastera Sonata, because it was so thrilling. So we're going to hear that now.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you very much. welcome back. I'm here now with a very special guest. It's my privilege to introduce the Vice President and Acting Chair of the jury, Vanessa Latarche. Vanessa is from the Royal College of Music in London. Vanessa, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you very much, Jared. It's a pleasure.
So I'd love to talk with you about your experience judging in competitions, and everyone is probably very eager to hear what is it like to sit on the jury and listen to competitions all over the world?
It's absolutely fascinating. It's something, and it's also a big privilege, because to be able to hear young people, especially sometimes most of the time at the beginning of their career, being able to deliver in such a professional and artistic way, which is what obviously we're looking for, it's a big privilege. So, and really to judge competitions around the world most of the time, the process, of course, is the same. In most, of course, there are tweaks in the jury rules and slightly differences in various countries. Yeah. But I'm artistic director of the Hastings International Piano Competition. And for that, we have a specific repertoire, which is based on piano concertos.
That's great.
Here, of course, in Paderewski, we have a lot of solo repertoire. So it's wonderful. And of course, specifically Paderewski too.
And this is your first time at the Paderewski, but of course you've listened to many other competitions, but it's not also your first time in Poland. So you've been here several times.
Yeah.
Maybe you could tell us a bit about your
I seem to have
impressions
spent most of this year in Poland, actually, for some reason. It just happened that way. But I do some courses here. I was in the summer in Legnica, which was a new course, which actually was beautifully run in that part of the world. And then later on, revisiting Dužniki, where I work.
Oh, the Dužniki Festival.
Yes, for the festival, Chopin Festival, in the summer. And that was actually my second time there. And it's always great to go back and see those audiences. And
how do you find the audiences in Poland?
Oh, so warm. So warm and so enthusiastic and respectful, just amazing. I mean, it's just a very special place.
And you were also teaching at the festival, giving master classes. Yeah. How did you find working with the students here?
It was wonderful, and of course our artistic director of Paderewski competition, Piotr Pečnik, is also there in Dužniki, and he selects the students to play for me in Dužniki,
right?
And they're very high level, and also artists in the beginning of their careers, so very special time.
What is it that's so exciting about listening to an artist at the very beginning of the career? What makes that so unique?
What is interesting is to see how they actually starting to open up in their own personality, and to see, sometimes when you're listening to some young pianists, they can perhaps let their own personality take over too much, and the temperament to take over too much, and so it's learning that skill of being able to balance, obviously, composer's intentions and all those good, qualities of presenting style. I mean, that's a subject you could talk to for hours, as you know. Yeah. But with their own personality, and also with an ability to be able to engage with an audience, and to be able to hold the audience. And there's that indefinable quality that you're looking for, which you just cannot say what it is, but it's something that mesmerizes you with that person. Yeah.
Now, of course, when we watch international competitions that are televised, like this one is, we look at the jury and they all have poker faces, and we wouldn't be able, as a regular audience, to know anything that's going on in their heads, of course. But of course, the audience is free to react how they want. They can cry, they can stand up and applaud and everything.
Don't think jury members don't cry. Sometimes they do, but very privately.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, if it moves you. Yeah.
And has that happened to you before?
Yeah. Sure.
And can you tell us maybe a bit about why jury members have such a discretion when they're in front of the cameras, just watching?
Well, it's respect for the candidates, actually. I personally really appreciate our jury at the moment, because everybody is very kind, listening, alert, and paying attention to everybody playing, and everyone who comes onto that stage, no matter who they are, they deserve our fullest attention. So if we are, pulling faces, talking to each other, doing something, it's really disrespectful. So I prefer for us to be able to, and it's a wonderful jury, actually. They're very, very full of respect for our
And everyone's getting along, and it feels like...
Yeah, sure.
That's wonderful. That's always such a special component in the competition, is the way the jury interacts with one another.
Yeah. And we are not allowed, and we don't discuss the candidates at all. So we just vote, and it's quite rare that happens.
Yeah.
And we find lots of other things to talk about. It's good.
Yeah.
But it's also refreshing, because after listening all day, the last thing you want to do is also
Go into all the details of it. Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Now, you're the director of the Hastings
Yes.
competition as well, and that focuses specifically on concertos.
Yes.
What would be the difference in vision between a competition that has the whole gamut of solo, sometimes chamber, and then ending with a concerto, versus a competition that is specifically for concertos?
Yeah. Well, in the Hastings competition, we've actually introduced a solo round, which I think is very important, so that we have one round that we see the person, just without second piano, without orchestras. That's very good. We also have a chamber orchestra round and also a full orchestra at the end. Similar to this, actually, we have a chamber orchestra in this
As we did here,
semi-finals
yeah,
this
right.
year to the Paderewski. But I suppose those competitions which judge all solo chamber as well as orchestral, basically you're looking for the complete artist.
Right.
But also, there's no difference really, and it's all performance.
Right.
So it's just a question of repertoire and what repertoire suits you best. I think, especially what often is the case is the chamber music round. We don't have one here, but often that trips people up because they're not experienced in playing with string players or wind players and haven't had that sort of interaction with that. So that's something that is quite telling, actually, when you have that round in it.
Which is funny because a lot of the bigger competitions, I mean, every major competition has a concerto round,
Right.
But it is interesting when you look at competitions that have a quintet and you have to work with a string quartet, that as soloists we're trained to really admire and love the huge concertos. And we
Correct.
understand almost intuitively, okay, I'm going to play Rachmaninoff second or third, or Prokofiev second or third, so the orchestra will be this huge mass. But give someone Schumann or Brahms quintet, and that's a totally different ballgame, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yes and no. Because if you're playing a concerto, it's also chamber music. It depends.
Yes.
Even the biggest concertos, you still have to interact with other people, don't you? So you still have to be watching, listening. You may have a cello solo with you, so across from the piano, you're watching them. You're absolutely with them all the time. So it is a little different because of the repertoire it's not, in some cases, depending on the repertoire of the quintet, it's not so soloistic. It's you're more part of this overall sound of string quartet plus piano. But it's still music, isn't it? And you're still a musician, so you've still got to interact with others. So I think those people that are usually very good chamber musicians also play concerto as well, because they listen. They listen to other people. But sometimes, if they're too good at the sort of accompanying side, and I hate that word, but the collaborative side of playing with one person, sometimes they find the soloistic side in a concerto a little more difficult because they have to lead more. So, there are elements in both that are linked, and there are also differences.
Do you find it vice versa as well? Students or performers can be very good at being soloists and having the grand manner in their playing, but if they have to play a collaborative role and they're a bit weaker, that really comes out, that they're...
Sometimes it does. Especially if they haven't had a chance to rehearse it with somebody, and of course in the competitions you get very little rehearsal. If you have a chamber music round, we don't have one here, but sometimes it's like one rehearsal and you're on. And that's not quite true in the real world with chamber music, because you blend and work together.
Yes.
It is true in the concerto world, professional concerto
In
world.
terms of having less rehearsal time.
Yeah,
of
sure,
course, it's notorious for that.
Sure. So in a way it's a good test, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
And I think for that reason, competitions are still very valuable, even though there's always this talk among students, don't go to too many competitions, or some students go to too many competitions, etc. They still have value because they are testing the whole musicality of the person.
Absolutely. I mean, of course they have value. These days, particularly with all the streaming that's available, this gives you a shop window for yourself. You're able to show yourself to the world, which, when I was doing competitions there was no streaming. There was
Right.
television sometimes, but never streaming. And that's another story, because some of the competitions then were actually on mainstream television. I mean, can you believe that? You know, when you think
Wow.
about the Leeds, that was in Britain.
Sure, because they had commentators,
They had
right?
it, yeah, on the
absolutely.
BBC.
Exactly. Mhm.
And Tchaikovsky, of course, always on Russian television. So
Mm-hmm.
it was a different world. But now you can show the world your wares, if you like, of
Exactly.
who you are. And it's amazing how even with that experience, even if you get knocked out in the first round, you can still be seen by a lot of people, and people will pick up, and if promoters will say, I like this person.
Right.
So it's wonderful. Also gives you the opportunity to play in public more, especially since the pandemic. Now these competitions have opened up again. Fantastic.
Yeah.
And look how wonderful to come and play in these conditions with a piano of your choice. How often does that happen? You usually get said, here's the piano, and you see some
And
brown
that's what
thing,
you've
you know,
got, yeah.
it's just falling apart. What are you going to do with that?
Right.
But here they have the highest quality instruments from all these makers here, and they're looked after. They're at top level, Formula One level, and it's such a wonderful opportunity for young people.
It is, and it's so valuable. You've mentioned the pandemic, and a lot of us were judging online during the pandemic, only videos, right? It is so different doing it in a hall live, right?
Yes, sure.
What are some of the differences?
Well, in the hall, of course, you get the reaction of the audience, which you don't have when you're just watching yourself at home online. And that atmosphere that's created in the hall is quite magic. It can be. And you sit there feeling that real sort of, something in the air. Can't explain it. It's there. It's hard to feel that online. The other thing is harder online is that to actually feel the person's personality. But in a way, if they are going to be one of the top level prize winners in the competitions, very often on their videos or on the streaming, you will feel that coming out of the screen at you as well. So if there's a real personality there, it will shine whether you're watching it online or in the hall.
Yeah.
But the experience of listening is slightly different, of course. Yeah.
I noticed that a lot, but being here, because I didn't know what to expect, I think it might be, I attended the Chopin to listen to the finals, and that was very interesting for me because it had been almost 2 years without being in a live concert, right?
Right.
And now I'm at the Chopin, and it's such an electric environment in competitions, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
And so, simple question maybe, but do you enjoy being a juror? Do you like the...
I'm privileged to be a juror.
Yeah.
And I do, of course, I enjoy it, and I enjoy the interaction with people, and I enjoy the interaction listening to pick up and hear talent. I really love to be able to observe that. But it is a big, big privilege, and I never forget that, because I've been on the other side. I've been a competitor in my youth. I did a lot, and I know what that feels like. And so I always think, if you're sitting there, and all of our jurors, of course, very distinguished pianists, and also have all been in that situation themselves, all of them, then they know also how the competitors are feeling, and they're very sympathetic to that. But yes, we enjoy the jury. It is hard work.
It's a lot of listening and a lot of focus.
And it's also a responsibility to find the right people, or the people that will hold this prize of the Paderewski competition and be an ambassador for that competition, and to be someone in the future that people say, yes, they are so and so, and they won the Paderewski competition.
Yeah, and as a juror, you feel the responsibility
Sure.
too. Yeah.
Even more so now that I'm vice president here. Yes.
Now, as vice president, do you have any words for competitors when it comes to the results are about to be announced, and some people are going to be disappointed?
Of course, yeah.
So you were talking about your experience as a competitor. All of us have had disappointments in competitions at points.
Of course.
So what would be something that you would say to the competitors who might walk away at this point and be disappointed?
Yeah, I would say just keep playing, play from your heart, be true to yourself and be honest. Whatever you do, whatever you deliver, be honest. And sometimes people will recognize it, or some juries will maybe think differently. After all, it is just a snapshot of what we've heard
Yeah.
from you. We haven't heard all of your repertoire. We've heard 25 to 30 minutes of your repertoire. That's it. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe you play something else absolutely amazingly. But how do we know? Because we haven't heard that. We just heard
Right.
25 to 30 minutes. I'd also like to say thank you to them for really giving us a really high-level competition, and for us to be able to choose the competitors for the next round from them, because without, and I will say this to them later, without the first round competitors that don't make it through, we wouldn't have a competition. So
Those are
thank
beautiful
you.
words, and they're well earned by the competitors.
They
I mean,
are.
I was in the hall too. It's a wonderful level here.
Yeah, it is.
And it was really exciting to hear the diversity in the programs, and we're so happy that you've come to the studio. Thank you
very
for
much.
for joining us, and it's been great to have you.
Thank you very much, Jared.
Thank you. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us today at the competition studio with competitors and Vanessa Latarche, the vice president of the jury. We'll see you very soon on the next episode of the Paderewski competition studio, same time, same place. Thank you very much.
The 12th International Paderewski Piano Competition in Bydgoszcz. Live broadcast at www.paderewskicompetition.pl.
Są takie chwile w życiu, które zostają w pamięci. Gdy dźwięki otaczają nas z każdej strony, muzyka przytula.
Too far gone to stay, said it anyway. Now these words forever free.
Najważniejsze, by ten czas spędzać z kimś, kogo kochamy, lubimy, szanujemy, w miejscu, które jest dla nas czymś ważnym, do którego zawsze chcemy wracać.
I hold on to you. Do you hold on to me? Try to give a little love to you, just enough to see us through. Now you're lost and broken. Though the world keeps spinning round, I keep one foot on the ground. Now you're lost and broken.
Filharmonia Pomorska. Daj się przytulić muzyce.
Możesz budować formę na siłowni i grać niesamowite solówki. Możesz oddać się pasji gotowania i miksować ścieżki. Możesz pielęgnować swoje rośliny i dyrygować chórem. Możesz uwieczniać piękne momenty i występować na wielkich scenach. W Akademii Muzycznej w Bydgoszczy stawiamy na Twoją swobodę i rozwój, dlatego dołącz do nas i poczuj, że naprawdę możesz.
Bydgoszcz, the capital and the largest city of the Kujawian Pomeranian region. It is a city of two rivers, the Vistula, the Duda, and the historic Bydgoszcz Canal. Picturesquely located between forests, it was associated with water from the very beginning. Water is one of the city's elements, and the old granaries standing by the Duda River tell about its past and the identity of its inhabitants. A remarkable object on the map of Bydgoszcz is the 18th century Bydgoszcz Canal. It contributed to a rapid development of trade and industry, and it associated its residents with the traditions of the skippers and inland navigation forever. The canal, along with the Vistula and Duda River, is a part of the international E17 waterway connecting Western Europe with the historic Królewiec. The revitalized Roder's Mills on the Mill Island have become a place of cultural gatherings and concerts. The Mill Island itself is a vibrant heart of the city that offers world-class entertainment, not only in opera nova, but also in a picturesque natural setting on the stage built on the Duda embankment. The city can be explored by boats or by a solar boat. From the water level, we can see even more clearly how the past connects with the present and modernity. The living museum created on the renovated Lemara barge tells about the traditions of skippers. From the marina of Bydgoszcz, we can set out in a canoe on a river journey around the city. The monuments of hydraulic engineering can be visited from the picturesque bicycle paths. And in the evening, you can rest in one of the multiple restaurants located by the Młynówka River. Come, see, feel it.
Dzień za dniem, noc za nocą. Nasze życie upływa pod bezkresnym niebem. Marzymy o rzeczach wielkich, ale życzymy sobie rzeczy prostych. Myślami wybiegamy do przodu, ale jesteśmy świadomi, że życie toczy się tu i teraz. Spoglądamy w niebo z dobrego miejsca na ziemi.
時間と手間をかけ工芸品のように作られる茂河合グランドピアノ。フラッグシップとして成長した茂河合グランドピアノは変わらぬ情熱と魂によってさらなる高みを目指します。